than the Ferraris. There's a cat and mouse game going. I'm pretty sure about it. In the banter in the paddock about how many stops there might be today, and just generally, I think Mercedes know they've got a real race on their hands today.
Mercedes quite happy to admit that this should be a two-stop race, but since when did any Formula One team want to admit what the strategy was before they went into the race? 2 weeks ago in Melbourne, that man there, Mattia Binotto, was shaking his head. Ferrari's pace had disappeared. They brought it back and some so far here in Bahrain this weekend.
Leclerc's pointing slightly left, look, down at the front there, as if he wants to head completely down the left-hand side of the track. Slightly surprised by that he's not gearing up to cover. You can see his car is pointing slightly left, can't you, from there, from onboard Lewis Hamilton.
And he's got 346 metres to navigate into turn one. There's a lot more dust on that left-hand side of the grid as well. Pole position for Leclerc. What happens from here on in? It's lights down, away we go. I think Vettel got the better of the start of the Ferrari, and Valtteri Bottas neck and neck with Lewis Hamilton as well. It is Sebastian Vettel out of the lead from Charles Leclerc. The two Mercedes with Bottas on the inside, going wheel to wheel through the first corner. Leclerc gets a little bit squeezed. Sebastian Vettel leads from Leclerc, from Bottas and Hamilton. Then comes Max Verstappen and the fast-starting Carlos Sainz ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Lars Sparks says someone's got some damage, and I think it's a racing point of Sergio Perez in the midfield. We'll find out in a moment.
Bottas after second.
Valtteri Bottas ahead of Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton now pressing. Leclerc has gone from pole down to third. It's not been the start that he would have wanted. Luckily, as he locks up the inside line, almost collides with the front wing of Lewis Hamilton.
Leclerc's really struggling everywhere for grip. Turning, braking, everything, as if he hasn't got his tyre temperatures and pressures where he needs them to be. Really struggling through these first few corners.
I think it's Lance Stroll in the racing point that's having a few problems. I can see Sergio Perez right towards the rear. Lance Stroll has gone down into the bottom two in this race at the moment. Romain Grosjean is running plumb last, if indeed he's running at all.
So no DRS, no opening of the rear wing until the end of the second lap, of course.
And down the long straights towards the final corner comes Sebastian Vettel. What a start it has been for him. His teammate struggling, Valtteri Bottas, as he did in Australia, getting the jump on his teammate Lewis Hamilton. It's Vettel who leads them across the line, and the gap between himself and Valtteri Bottas is 1.4 seconds.
Hamilton closing in on the back of Leclerc. We know the Ferrari though is quick in a straight line. Is Leclerc going to do a lunge down into turn one? No, he's not, but he's pushing Bottas hard, and he's got the position.
Bottas locked up. That allows Charles Leclerc to get past the Mercedes, and Bottas now struggling out of turn two, and Lewis Hamilton is coming at him, and he's gone wheel to wheel already. We've seen two Mercedes go wheel to wheel into turn four before. Bottas has the inside line. Hamilton then tries to switch round and get a better exit, and they're plunging down the hill together. Can Hamilton get ahead of Bottas? He does. Squeezes his teammate out and takes third place.
Big statement there from Valtteri Bottas, fighting that one out wheel to wheel, but a critical error for him. It's allowed the two Ferraris to get away. Then the Mercedes squabbling for good measure.
Romain Grosjean and Lance Stroll into the pits. Nico Hulkenberg's made up places, up to 11th already. Front wing change for Lance Stroll. We saw the sparks coming from underneath the racing point, and you rather get the feeling that there's contact being made, and that is the damage on Romain Grosjean's tyres, as onto the car go the medium compound, and back out into the race. In last place he comes.
Poor first lap for Lando Norris, for some reason presumably caught up in some of that scuffle that looked like it was coming out of turn two into turn three. But that was a critical error there from Valtteri Bottas to release the Ferraris. They'll be breathing a sigh of relief on that one, but a very long way to go.
Lando Norris, turn 6 and 7, ran wide, and that, Martin, is why he's down behind Pierre Gasly at the moment, and Alex Albon as well, ahead of Alex Albon, I should say. Sebastian Vettel, who's only led 4 laps in the last 9 races before tonight, leads them across the line once again. His teammate Charles Leclerc in second place. Right at the back, George Russell's going for a move on Robert Kubica in the Williams. We'll watch them into turn one. Russell's got that overtake done.
So the two Ferraris are 1.3 to 1.4 seconds faster than Hamilton. Bottas, of course, having that problem. So he's nearly 3.5 seconds slower on that lap overall than the two Ferraris.
DRS is now enabled, and Valtteri Bottas has got some making up to do behind him. Max Verstappen very much in close range, and we'll get the benefit of DRS after the next couple of corners. The rear wing will open up, the drag will reduce, and he'll get an accelerated speed to try and get some overtaking done. And we've already seen plenty of action and plenty of locking up as well. Verstappen made a bit of a mess of turn 10.
Yeah, now he's under a lot of pressure from Sainz, isn't he?
Well, Sainz has got DRS as well. Look at the dust as they go offline. Verstappen out-drags the McLaren. Magnussen still ahead of Raikkonen. Here comes the Renault of Nico Hulkenberg behind Sergio Perez.
Verstappen still had the rear wing opening DRS there himself, because the detection point was before he actually made that mistake.
So we're on lap 3 of 57 here in Bahrain. Cars sliding around, overtakes happening, dust flying up in very windy conditions as well. As into the final corner, Kimi Räikkönen putting Kevin Magnussen under just a little bit of pressure, and Charles Leclerc setting another fastest lap as he closes the gap between himself and his teammate Sebastian Vettel. 3.5 seconds cover the top three. Behind them come Valtteri Bottas. Verstappen under pressure from Sainz once again. This could be interesting going into turn one. Ricciardo has a look on Räikkönen. Räikkönen locks up his brakes. Ricciardo's still pressing the Alfa Romeo as well. We're on board with Carlos Sainz now, and he really can see that rear wing of Verstappen getting very large. He can't see it now. He's got past him. Can he get past him and make the move stick? Did they make contact? Verstappen keeps hold of the place. He's fifth, Sainz sixth.
Verstappen very late on the brakes, and his damage for Sainz. Right front.
Oh
and
dear,
he's a long way from home.
Well, I wondered if they touched Martin, and it rather looks like they have, as Kimi Räikkönen almost shunting Kevin Magnussen round the corner and losing out a little bit as Daniel Ricciardo now comes at him. Sparks flying into the visor of Pierre Gasly and co, as Sainz now has to get off the track and let others past, and he is going ever slower. The man who retired, of course, in Melbourne, and his race here not looking promising at this stage with another big problem. It was the MG UK, tonight is his front wing.
Yes, he'd almost made it past Verstappen, hadn't he? Verstappen had the inside line, just got out of the brake pedal until he had the apex covered, and they somehow managed to bang front wheels.
Daniel Ricciardo down in 7th place at the moment, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. Nico Hülkenberg in the other Renault is up to 9th, with Sergio Perez right behind him. Sainz going ever more slowly. Paul di Resta, what happened? Paul, I think we can hear you. Try again. We'll go to Paul at race control in a few moments' time, but we're on board at the moment with Charles Leclerc. And we ought to concentrate on this, because I said he was closing the gap, and he really is closing the gap at a rate of knots between himself and Sebastian Vettel. It was 1.5 seconds, it's down to half a second.
Yeah, he's got DRS as well now. He's within that 1 second gap that you need, but he was 3/10 quicker on the previous lap, 5/10 quicker on the lap just past. So Leclerc with a lot more pace, as he has had, it must be said, through free practice. He's had a tenth or two over his teammate, generally speaking. What are Ferrari going to do now?
I just wonder, we'll see the race start in a moment, Martin, but did Sebastian Vettel have an advantage on what is possibly a cleaner side, on what's normally the dirtier side?
He got away. His initial getaway was not good, was it? Because the Mercedes was already on his tail. So I think the initial release, but down the pit straight now, Leclerc is going to have the slipstream on his teammate, and he's going to open his rear wing for more than 20 kilometres per hour advantage. And I'll be very surprised if he's not close to his teammate when he gets down to the braking zone.
New regulations for 2019 to make it easier to follow the car in front, and maybe we're seeing the benefit of that tonight as well. 3 DRS zones slipstreaming as well. They're into a headwind at the moment. Look how Leclerc is gaining on Vettel, passing Vettel, into the lead goes Charles Leclerc, but has he gone too deep? Has he gone too deep? No, just gets back onto the racing line ahead of his teammates.
And now it's Vettel who'll get the DRS down into turn 4. This is a proper race.
And
nobody's yielding at all.
Very nearly, Martin went into the back of his teammate there. Such was the speed Vettel was getting under DRS.
It's early in the season, the championship's all to play for. Both Mercedes drivers going at it together, both Ferrari drivers. No quarter asked and no quarter given there.
So there's Sebastian Vettel's start. You're right, he did get a much better getaway in the second phase as well. Already he's clear of Charles Leclerc behind Bottas and Hamilton, going wheel to wheel into turn 1.
So Leclerc and Vettel so close together. Remember back in Melbourne 2 weeks ago, they nearly collected each other there. This was also a much better start there from Vettel. He's thinking, got this one covered.
But listen to the wheel spin as well. Even in 5th gear he was getting it.
Very calm, very steady, cautious almost, but it's got the job done. But eventually, there we go.
We're on board with Lance Stroll, and he is going to make contact with a Haas right there. So Grosjean goes off, Stroll gives him a bit of a tap. They both end up in the pits for damage, and Alex Albon watching the view from the Toro Rosso. Is that a racing incident? The stewards are looking at it, Martin.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any penalties from that.
So this is Hamilton on Leclerc.
Leclerc was struggling for grip. He locked his wheels into here. They nearly touched too. He just did not have his tyres prepared for whatever. Leclerc, for the start, was expecting more grip. It was all over the show, wasn't he?
And that's Lando Norris at the rear there. You can see running wide as Max Verstappen got rather interested in that battle for a few moments as well. Verstappen currently 9 seconds down on the race leader after a little banging match with Carlos Sainz.
I cannot believe this guy. I cannot believe.
Sainz not happy with the treatment there.
No, and that's going to be suspension damage and race ending, of course. And what happened was Verstappen hit the curb and bounced back onto the track. You've got a lot of undamped spring in these front tyres. You've got a big sidewall on Formula 1 tyres, and it literally bounced across the road.
That's Albon and Gasly going for it down in 12th and 13th place. Danny Kvyat right behind them. Out in front, Charles Leclerc has a 1.1 second lead over his teammate Sebastian Vettel. Already great entertainment from the two Ferraris. Nico Rosberg with us, world champion once, of course. Nico, you know what it's like to have a battle with your teammate in Bahrain.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's applaud Ferrari. It's so cool to see that they're allowed to race. Great action there, and Charles is just absolutely flying today. He's in great shape. And let me just talk about Max Verstappen as well quickly. I mean, the message there was clear. Never try to overtake Max Verstappen. And he just did a brilliant job in defending there. And yeah, unfortunately it went wrong for Carlos with his car after that.
But he's back in the race, Carlos Sainz, so maybe it was just the front wing that was broken rather than the suspension, which is very good news. He's back in the race, and he's done the fastest lap so far.
Meanwhile, Kevin Magnussen's gone from 6th down to 9th, lost about 4 seconds on the previous lap. In fact, he's now down in 10th place behind Sergio Perez. I wonder what's happened to him. Kimi Raikkonen under pressure at the moment from Nico Hülkenberg.
How is the front wing? How is the front wing? I don't know, you have to tell me.
That's exactly the answer I was expecting.
You can't even see it.
You can't see it. It's about 2.5 metres in front of you. It's 2 metres wide, and you have no idea. I think what they're trying to say is, have you got understeer? Is the car sliding? Have you damaged your front wing? But of course, they've got any number of sensors on the car back for the pits to let them know if the downforce is registering correctly.
Well, so there's Magnussen going wide at turn 10. Raikkonen slips down the inside there. Magnussen comes back at Kimi Raikkonen, but all to no avail because Magnussen's down in 10th, Raikkonen's in 7th. We have located Paul de Resta at race control. Paul.
Yes, Crofty, just what I was going to say with the Sainz-Verstappen incident. I think if I was a steward looking at it, although Sainz was past Verstappen on the brakes, he didn't quite leave enough of a car on the inside, and what that pushed Max into do was bouncing across the curve, like Martin said, and into him. And unfortunately, Sainz coming off worse when McLaren were doing so well.
Yeah, unfortunately, two feisty young drivers didn't want to give any distance there, but I find it quite interesting how close Lewis Hamilton is to the back of the two Ferraris, and now lapping more quickly. This race is a long way from over.
Getting closer as well, now 3 seconds. Charles Leclerc to Lewis Hamilton, first, second and third. Sebastian Vettel plumb in the middle, second and a half back. You don't want to be locking up too often if you're the race leader, Charles Leclerc. It's not going to help your tyres or your winning position.
That Charles is Achilles heel at the moment, those little errors. We saw it last year at Sauber from time to time, we've seen it. We saw it in Melbourne as well, a little trip across the grass. Just a momentary lapse of concentration maybe, but control definitely.
Magnus has got no race pace at the moment, Martin. He's been swallowed up by Lando Norris. He might get swallowed up by Pierre Gasly here as well. 3 of them trying to go in all line astern into turn 4. Norris comes out in front ahead of Magnussen. Gasly still biding his time. The stewards are looking at that incident between Verstappen and Sainz as we look at this battle between Gasly and Magnussen. And the Haas, very much the struggling part of that trio. And now look, there's Albon and there's Kvyat, and after those comes Giovinazzi and the Alfa Romeo.
Anything to save Sainz's evening now would be a safety car, because he did just stay on the lead lap.
So, Karun Chandok in the pit lane for us tonight. Down to you.
Yeah, Crofty, just looking at the strategies here, because you're down to lap 10. Checo Perez, by the way, has come in. He's the first of the stoppers for an early pit stop. The leaders don't yet have a gap. Daniel Ricciardo in 6th position, 15 seconds behind. So if they pit, they're going to come out in traffic. 2 Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton now only 1.1 behind Sebastian Vettel. Do they blink first and go for an undercut? They need to wait, though, for that gap to open up.
If they go for the undercut, Martin, Hamilton's got a new set of soft tyres available. Bottas has got a set that's only done half a lap pretty much. They should be able to extend that second stint if they go with a soft tyre and not be suffering at the end if they want the overcut.
Well, certainly got an ace there, haven't they, in their hands. We're starting to see quite a lot of pit stops now. Raikkonen has been in. We've got Norris in, Gasly, Albon for good measure. Perez has already left the pits.
I tell you what, if we're on lap 10, already starting a few pit stops, then Mercedes might be right here. This should be a 2-stop race.
Yeah.
Difficult to see anyone making a 1-stop last effectively. The stewards have decided, by the way, no further action, no investigation necessary. Grosjean and Stroll racing incident down at turn 2 on the opening lap.
Yeah, I think Lance, if he sees that, he'll think that was kind of inevitable. That Grosjean was going to turn in. Grosjean could have given him a bit more space if he knew he was there. The stewards look at something like that and think it's the start of a Grand Prix. Yeah. I think the ruling is different in those circumstances when they're all wheel to wheel, but I think quite correctly no driver has been deemed to be at fault. They're really struggling now, aren't they, into turn 10 as the front tyres are beginning to give up.
Hamilton complaining on the radio that this car is still oversteering to a certain extent. We saw the lock up there, and we just saw Gasly and Albon coming into the pits. I think Toro Rosso Red Bull I should say, were trying to get the jump there on Alex Albon. Not happened.
and that cost Lewis over a second. Yeah, little misdemeanor. But Verstappen's all right in there as well. 9.8 seconds covers the top 5 still. Let's not count him out for a solid result if he can keep his tyres together nicely in the Red Bull.
And this man leading the race then, Charles Leclerc, and this is how he regained his lead. He lost it right at the start, down into turn 1. DRS very, very effective, late on the brakes as well as you can do into a headwind, of course, and sailing past his teammate.
He did well to slow that down. I really thought he was going to be heading off the track, but Vettel,
so did his manager.
Yeah, Vettel covered the line, didn't he? Vettel was defending hard. It wasn't. He didn't move out of the way to let him through. Rest assured.
Right, Norris comes in. Magnussen comes in. Magnussen just out ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's got past Alex Albon, and that was the McLaren and the Haas covering off that early stop by the Red Bull and the Toro Rosso as well. And Gasly having to lock up a bit there. That's given Albon a chance to try and get past the Red Bull. They are going wheel to wheel into turn 4, and Alex Albon cuts across Pierre Gasly and retakes the place that he lost on the previous lap, 16th place. But they've stopped. Have Magnussen, Albon, Gasly and Norris ahead of them in 14th. No further action. Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, the stewards, letting the drivers race tonight. No penalties so far. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, Crofty, into turn 10, they've got a tailwind that's hurting them, and that's why we're seeing these drivers make those mistakes. Nico Hülkenberg, by the way, quick line on him, up to 7th place. From way down, he was 17th after that engine mapping problem. Just 2 seconds behind Ricciardo. Max Verstappen and Red Bull have blinked, by the way. That's the noise of the Red Bull coming into the pits right behind me. The gap is starting to open up. There's a gap window of about 8 seconds between Kvyat and Hülkenberg. So Ferrari could pit early now and bring the race leader in and get some free air.
Interesting. Thank you, Karun. Medium tyres going on to the Red Bull. That they can get Max Verstappen in, change his tyres and come out still ahead of the Alfa Romeo.
35 laps, a long way to go though, isn't it, on a set of tyres around this track. It's a very coarse surface here to help. Will now lose track position, I imagine.
And Lewis Hamilton going on to the soft compound tyre. Mercedes 2 stopping at the very least. There goes Valtteri Bottas on Bottas in 5th place. He's just set the new fastest lap of the race as well. Sebastian Vettel leads from Daniel Ricciardo. They haven't stopped yet in this race from Charles Leclerc. There goes Bottas once again.
Four, isn't it? But it has put a lot of cars side by side as well as overtaking.
Ricciardo running 3rd but yet to stop. Behind them Sebastian Vettel, Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen. There is 11 seconds between the top 6 drivers, and you can see an orange and an exclamation mark between Giovinazzi and Kvyat. They're under investigation for that incident where the Italian hit Kvyat's Toro Rosso down at turn 11.
Yeah, Giovinazzi might take a little bit of pain for that, we'll see. But it's interesting that a slow puncture has changed the face of this race.
Yeah.
We thought it was cunning tactics, and it's forced everybody possibly into a 2-stop to react to that. But Leclerc nicely out front now from Daniel Ricciardo, who was 5 seconds slower on that previous lap. Of course, he hasn't stopped yet, as Danny Rick is the Renault.
This has worked out beautifully, that first round of pit stops for Leclerc, Martin. He's 3.89 seconds or so gap between Leclerc and Hamilton, but this time his teammate's not in the middle of that as well. It's not Ferrari's doing, is it, I suppose, really, that Hamilton managed the undercut and Vettel was put in trouble. They had to respond, but it worked out beautifully for Leclerc.
Yes, it did. And when they told Vettel he's racing two cars, I think they meant the two Mercedes, because he wasn't that far in front of Bottas when he came out, and he was quite clearly behind Hamilton.
So Bottas has got his hands full with Max Verstappen, although he does look to have the race pace at the moment. Giovinazzi is in the top 9, but he is yet to stop in this race. He's the only driver, apart from Daniel Ricciardo, who has yet to make a pit stop. Lando Norris running in 10th place in a very tight, congested midfield battle. George Russell running down in 17th place at the moment, with Stroll and Grosjean, who made early pit stops behind him, and Carlos Sainz, who had trouble as well. Giovinazzi does come in for a pit stop, goes on to the soft compound tyres. We're on lap 17 of 57 here in the Kingdom of Bahrain, and if the next 40 laps are anything like the first 17, well, I'm all in favour of these new regulations and the DRS zone here tonight. It's been brilliant racing.
Yeah, it's the sort of race we were expecting, because we knew in the race conditions we were going to see Mercedes much closer to Ferrari. And I think Hamilton, albeit on the brand new softs, of course, is sitting there very comfortably in second place at the moment.
Kevin Magnussen has been passed once again by Pierre Gasly this time around. That has 6 on the grid, Martin. Whatever is wrong with that car tonight, the race pace has just disappeared for it.
I don't know if it's hurting his tyres or whether he's carrying an issue.
Behind him, he's got Alex Albon, who's going to line up an overtaking move, I think, very, very soon indeed. So, after the excitement of the first round of pit stops, let's see if Karun Chandhok's caught his breath a little bit down in the pit lane.
I'll tell you what, you need a second to catch your breath, don't you? It's been amazing so far, Stormfree. Just look at Daniel Ricciardo, currently in 4th place. Their strategy's not working out. He's in the 39s now, lapping a long way off. Even his teammate, Nico Hülkenberg, last couple of laps, over 2.5 seconds quicker. And this isn't going to work out for Daniel. They're the only ones, I think, trying to stretch to a one-stopper. But it's not going to play. You see, he's got Bottas all over the back of it. Lewis Hamilton, by the way, has found a good chunk of pace on
No idea whatsoever. There's £5 I'll never get back. There's Valtteri Bottas ahead of Max Verstappen, ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, one of the big gainers in the opening few laps. And well, you can see the toll that engine mapping issue took on Hülkenberg's qualifying yesterday. Knocked out in Q1, but bang on the pace now.
Okay, dude, lots of people ahead have committed to 2 stops, so let's make 1 stop work.
Might just this race. He has, he has stopped. He's gone onto the medium tyres, and he's taking it nice and steady in the hope that one less pit stop, which loses you about 23 seconds of your lap time, can get him into a point-scoring finish. Asking him to do quite a bit, as you mentioned, Martin. Out in front, by the way, Charles Leclerc on the medium tyre, Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound tyre. Leclerc is actually finding a chunk of pace at the moment that Hamilton...
Today, you seem to...
Bottas, his pace, the last few laps, you know, he's dropped way back now, 15 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. Do we think he's doing a bit of management, or is he just struggling? I know on the last one he was only 4 tenths slower than the leaders, but the previous few he was over the second sometimes.
Hulkenberg just for 1 second goes ahead of Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. Hulkenberg is up into 7th place. Nice move there from a man making his 158th race start, equal to Martin Brundle in Formula 1, and keeping Kimi Raikkonen, who is in his 293rd race start, at bay as they head down the hill, and Raikkonen's not giving that one up.
Yeah, Hulkenberg gave Raikkonen a fair old squeeze down into turn 1. Just about left him the width of an Alfa Romeo Formula 1 car there, which you're obliged to do. That looks like it's job done then, for now anyway, for Nico Hülkenberg.
You and Nico Hülkenberg, the same amount of Grand Prix. Both looking as fresh-faced as you ever did there. Leclerc leads from Hamilton and from Vettel. What do you reckon, to Karun's point there, Martin, about Valtteri Bottas? Is he trying to manage his pace a little bit?
I'm in big trouble, man. It's not 21.
Okay, copy those.
Rather get the feeling Hamilton isn't trying to manage his pace too much. You certainly get the feeling that Sebastian Vettel is closing, and you can see the DRS assistance that he's got now as well.
And I think putting the brand new, we thought it was a bit of an ace in their pocket, the brand new set of red mark soft tyres on, hasn't actually been very good, has it? They faded very quickly.
Not at all. Vettel having a little look there into turn 4. But the longer that these laps go, he's going to get more and more opportunities, you think, because Hamilton just appears to be a bit of a sitting duck in terms of out-and-out lap pace. He's now 6.2 seconds behind the race leader, looking ever better for Charles Leclerc out in front.
And you can see just turning in there to turn 8, just how much better front end Vettel had on the Ferrari, as Hamilton's really struggling to get the car to turn and then to grip into the traction zone on the way out of the corner.
So another DRS zone here for Sebastian Vettel, and you'll see that Mercedes getting an awful lot closer as we head down that back straight. Runs parallel with the drag racing strip here at the Sakir International Circuit. In that out-and-out drag race, Mercedes just holding off Ferrari for the moment.
And every time we've gone on board with the driver into turn 11, they're tippy-toed into that. That's where the tailwind is. You can tell they're leaving quite a margin sailing in there.
So the rears are nearly done, says Lewis Hamilton, who managed to pit on lap 13. We're now on lap 23. So 10 laps on those soft compound tyres, and they're not looking in very good condition, or feeling in very good condition, for the reigning world champion. Sebastian Vettel's coming back at him again. Hamilton a little bit too far ahead for Vettel to attack, but he's going to be so much closer now, coming out of turn 3.
Yeah, Hamilton too wide in 1, that makes it tight appointment 2. We're going to have DRS sitting on board the Ferrari. Hamilton's going to have to go right to cover us off. Now we're going to coast around the outside. Job done, as long as we stay within the bounds of the racetrack, which he just about does. And nicely done there. Vettel had so much more grip, but Hamilton, as soon as you're wide in 1, turns 2 and 3 just fall apart as well.
That was the thing. Was that DRS just not needed into turn 4? Did it become too powerful at all? I'd suggest no, because Vettel got alongside. He didn't get the overtake done before the corner. I'm a sitting duck here, guys, says Lewis Hamilton. He didn't get the overtake done, Martin, before the apex of the corner. He still had to work quite hard for it.
Yeah, so I think it's doing a bit too. It's too long anyway up there. They need to trim that DRS zone or get rid of it.
That might be a better compromise. Just trim it a little bit. Toto Wolff looking a little bit rueful there, and probably because of this. Hamilton went to defend on the inside. Vettel's ahead at this stage, goes a little bit wider, and then has to cut across.
Leaves him racing room on the inside, especially as he doesn't want contact and a puncture of his own, of course. So, all sensible stuff from both of them. And Vettel can now set about his young teammate, who's half the pit straight ahead of him.
So they started 1-2 on the grid, and we're back in that order once again. Leclerc ahead of Vettel, and the man who started third, Lewis Hamilton, has DRS to keep tabs on Sebastian Vettel, who locks up a little bit there, and might just fancy his chances, Hamilton, if he get a good getaway from turn 3 of getting that place back again.
No, he's got no grip. Hamilton's got no grip in turn 2. He was fighting the car, just as he needed to be squirting the throttle. He was having to get out of it.
So Paul di Resta down at Sky Race Control. What have you got for us?
Yeah, Crofty, I'm just watching everybody's on the soft tyre, and what's happening, there's a runner out front left and they just can't get the car to rotate. Hamilton was lazy off the last corner, which allowed the challenge obviously for Vettel to get by at turn 4, because he just turned into the first corner, didn't lock the inside front and just understeered wide, which gave Vettel to pounce on him. But Vettel's under a bit of pressure here, so Hamilton maybe has a little bit of something still left.
Two Renaults getting close together. Ricardo on a one-stop strategy, hasn't been in the pits yet. Lap time's horrible at the moment in the late 1 minute 39s. He's going to have to let his teammate through, who's on in the 137s on fresher tyres.
And Hamilton keeping Sebastian Vettel honest as they head up the hill to the highest part of this circuit, where they'll get hit very nicely by a crosswind as they turn right. And that's what has kept Lewis Hamilton in touch on this lap, that lock-up into turn 1 for Sebastian Vettel.
What Vettel did there was realising he'd under-rotated, they call it, locking up we call it, and got off the brakes. He'd rather run wide than flat spot the tyre. But Lewis just had no grip to do anything with it.
Down the main straight once again, Lewis Hamilton is out of DRS range.
Yeah, didn't have it, did he?
No, so he kept Sebastian Vettel honest, but then by the time they crossed the line, the detection zone, there was more than a second between the Ferrari and the Mercedes, and Vettel can probably concentrate a bit more now about his teammate Charles Leclerc, who is 8.2 seconds out in the lead. And I wonder how he's feeling now. 24 laps completed, we're on lap 25, been hair and scare and stuff, but he's back out in the lead again.
And Renault pitted Ricardo, which solves the problem of the two Renaults being close on the track. So finally, Daniel Ricciardo will get a fresh set of boots.
Just behind, by the way, Nico Hülkenberg, Lando Norris is starting to get a bit close to Kimi Räikkönen as well. The only teenager on the grid against the oldest man on the grid, and I think we might be seeing Norris sizing up an overtaking opportunity in a few moments' time as well. They're just heading down through turns 6 and 7 at the moment.
Yeah, Kimi doesn't look like it, doesn't drive like it, but he's more than twice as old as Lando.
Still is the only man on the grid who was born in the 1970s. What a decade. Like flared trousers and brown shirts. This is Lando Norris. And that's a lock up there from Kimi Räikkönen. Norris is now well within touching distance of the Alfa Romeo. Another good qualifying for Lando Norris in the top 10 once again. McLaren actually with two cars in the top 10 on the grid for the first time since Malaysia in 2017, having an excellent weekend before Carlos Sainz, who's just pitted by the way, had contact with Max Verstappen. Norris running in the points at the moment. We've gone to the hard tyre there for for Carlos Sainz.
We've seen that much this weekend, have we?
Not at all.
In fact, most drivers have either one set or max 2 sets of those coming into the event.
Well, that's we'll just run that to the end of the race. And if we get a safety car, then we can close right up. Other people might pit, and we can stay out. Here comes Lando Norris on Kimi Räikkönen down the main straight to about 205 miles an hour. Under braking down the inside goes Lando Norris on Kimi Räikkönen. Räikkönen collapses the curve for good measure as well. Lando Norris moves up into 7th place.
So does Räikkönen get the DRS?
Oh, yes, he does.
No, he didn't. Norris still had it. Norris still had the DRS open at the detection point available. So now, if he's got more speed, he can get away from the fin, which is what he's doing.
I thought for 2 seconds he'd actually got a bit of DRS there, but if he did, it shot a lot earlier. And Norris is certainly open.
Yeah, I thought Kimi was going to get it, but the detection point, of course, down there is
it's just around
it's the same one, isn't it? It's the same one, of course.
Yeah, right. That makes a lot of sense. Kimi didn't get DRS, as the replay proves. On his own at the moment, Lewis Hamilton, you can see the Ferrari getting ahead of him. And behind Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, around about 8.6 seconds further back, lapping faster than Max Verstappen, who's running a very lovely race in 5th at the moment. A very lovely race being run by Charles Leclerc as well. Not that he'll care too much. He's got an 8-second gap to his teammate as well. That's 27 of 57 here. Alex Albon has just pitted once again, dropped down into 15th place, and behind his Toro Rosso teammate Danny Kvyat. So what was expected, Martin, high wear rate on these tyres is certainly coming through tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the wind and the sand, and it's a very abrasive surface intentionally, so as I said earlier on. If you build a racetrack in the desert, expect to be a bit of sand around. So it is a very open surface that gives the tyres a hard time, and it's the harder end of the scale of tyres that they bring here anyway.
Not been resurfaced, this track, since it was originally built in 2004 as well. We've seen a lot of resurfacing, and of course the tyres with a narrower gauge on them than we had last year, as Robert Kubica gets lapped by the race leader Charles Leclerc.
Kubica and Russell within 2.5 seconds of each other. It's a stronger race for Robert Kubica here than it was in Melbourne.
So he is. Yeah, he's had quite a tussle with his teammate George Russell, actually. Russell's just pitted, so Kubica moves up into 16th place. These are worrying times for Williams in terms of their competitiveness on the track, but Sir Patrick Head has been drafted in as a consultant to try and help out things in the factory and see if he can't find a solution to their problems there with the fundamental issue that George Russell was talking about after the race in Australia.
Sir Patrick Head, a very no-nonsense gentleman. It'll be very interesting what he can achieve there. Probably quite a lot of stuff to unravel.
Where do you start? Once you find out where you need to start, then you can kind of get the job done. Talking off starts, this was Sebastian Vettel's getaway on the right-hand side of the screen. They got him ahead of Charles Leclerc right from the off. At this stage, it all started going a bit wrong for the young man from Monaco.
Yeah, and once again, Bottas getting the better start as well of the two Mercedes. But I think what's significant here, despite his tender years, Leclerc, he didn't panic at this point. I mean, he dropped to 3rd place, was under pressure all the way around the first 8-9 corners before he could find grip. There is.
It did touch.
It did just touch.
Hamilton and Leclerc.
Yeah. But Leclerc kept his head, sorted it all out, had a really scruffy half lap, and then finds himself in the lead by 8.3 seconds.
Could have gone very wrong indeed for Charles Leclerc. It did go wrong for Romain Grosjean. You can see the damage there to his rear left tyre. You can see the sparks coming from underneath Lance Stroll's racing point as well. Stroll was the man that hit Grosjean. Grosjean the only one to retire from this race so far. We've got 19 running after 28 racing laps, and Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, George Russell and Robert Kubica, the 4 cars that have been lapped. And the top 3 out in front, you can see that Hamilton on the soft compound tyre definitely have to stop again because he's not run 2 different compounds. The Ferraris could go to the end of the race, but it's unlikely. They've all been 14 or 15 laps on those tyres so far.
Yeah, I think they're doing a bit of time management. We know how unhappy Lewis is with his tyres, but actually he's kept the gap to 2.3 seconds. He's just measuring himself quite nicely to the back of Vettel at the moment for 2nd and 3rd.
Different compounds of tyres have what they call different windows and temperatures to switch the tyres on to get them the most grippy. And just because the soft tyres are a softer compound doesn't mean it's easier to switch them on, Martin, does it?
No, they don't. It's not quite as linear as that, I'm afraid. But obviously you've got more grip the softer you go. You've got more grip and higher degradation. They wear out a lot faster. And if you think it's odd that a set of tyres will only do about 40, 50 kilometres, 25, 30 miles. It's not that hard when you're putting these kind of loads through them.
Very true. Right, down to Sky Race controller. Charles Leclerc sets a new fastest lap of the race, by the way. At the moment, he's got an extra point coming his way if he can keep hold of it. Paul Arista.
Yeah, Crofty, you're concentrating in front. I've been looking at the midfield battle. We know Magnus and Ricciardo are the first of the one-stoppers, but Norris really is starting to crank on the pressure on Hulkenberg. He's within 4 seconds of him, catching him. So where are they going to feed out? They're going to have much fresher tyres at the end as well. And as we saw in Melbourne, 5 cars all within 8 seconds at the end of the race. And with the DRS effect here, I think we could be in for something quite special.
Talking of Daniel Ricciardo and Kevin Magnussen, look, there they are, the hats ahead of the Renault, and Magnussen just holding off the challenge of Ricciardo, who would dearly like to score some points after failing to do so in his home Grand Prix, of course, in Melbourne, where he had to retire after damage sustained right at the start when he ran over that gutter and he lost his front wing. He's going to be within touching distance of Magnussen going through the final corner. He's going to get DRS down the main straight as well.
Those strobing 3 rear lights they've got for 2019 with annoying intensity, especially on a wet day, which is what they're especially for. Rain lights for Ricciardo, in a great place here for a move down into turn 1.
Nice and easy, does it?
Himself to turn 1.
He doesn't have to look at those lights anymore.
No,
they are
show his own now.
Yeah.
And of course that's just as they're harvesting electricity, as they're charging their batteries up at a point where they don't need maximum acceleration.
We talk about degradation of these tyres as well, Martin. Lap 15, Charles Leclerc put in a 1:33.9, now lap 28, so 13 laps into his stint, a 1:37.2, so he's lapping about 3.3 seconds a lap slower at the moment than he was when those tyres first went on, and that's because some of the grippiness has gone out. He can't go as fast through the corners.
But they're sitting pretty, aren't they? Yeah. They've got a pit stop in hand to Bottas in 4th place. They've got to be wary of Hamilton. We know Hamilton's got to stop again anyway. So it's just Vettel needs to make sure he gaps Hamilton a little bit more. But Ferrari are in control of this race at the moment.
And Karim Chandok has more.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say what Martin was pointing out. 3.1 seconds now, Hamilton to Vettel. So Mercedes want to pit because the drivers, that lead pack, are into the 37s, guys. So they dropped a long way off, even when they started this stint in the high 35. We're getting into the pit stop window for the second stop. If Mercedes want to pit now, Hamilton will lead the most mighty outlap to do another undercut to gain that 3.1 seconds. Just a quick line on Hulkenberg versus Ricciardo. Ricciardo's not going to be very happy. He's 22 seconds behind Nico Hulkenberg and needing to manage that set of tyres to the end of the race. So, considering he started 6 places ahead of him, 7 with Grosjean's penalty, he's not going to be a happy bunny at the end of it, is he?
No, he's not, but to be fair, Hulkenberg did have a mega couple of opening laps you create your own luck in life, and maybe that's what he's done. That is Lance Stroll, by the way. He's been lapped by Max Verstappen. Guess what? He wants to try and unlap himself a little bit here. When was the last time we saw a pink car trying to unlap itself past a Red Bull, Martin, and what happened? Trivia question. Well, Max Verstappen was leading, of course, the Brazilian Grand Prix. It was Esteban Ocon in a pink car, and it didn't end well for either.
Status of the tyres. So Stroll pitted on lap 24, Verstappen on lap 11.
Yeah, so Stroll had been into the pits a little more recently, struggling, isn't he, as he gets out of that final turn now in the slipstream, and he's got DRS as well. You're perfectly entitled to unlap yourself if you think you've got the pace, and Stroll rather thinks he has got the pace here, and he's going wheel to wheel with Verstappen to try and unlap himself, and just cuts off the Red Bull as they go through turn 2. Behind them comes Carlos Sainz ahead of Robert Kubica. Kubica will now fight Carlos Sainz up to the next braking zone as well. Stroll unlaps himself from Verstappen mercifully, but he didn't touch this time around.
Yeah, that was a fight Max just did not need to be involved in. Hulkenberg's 18 seconds behind him. He may as well just let Stroll go, but I don't think that's how Max Verstappen's mind is hardwired.
Yeah. Christian Horner live on the pit wall. I'd like to go down to him in a couple of minutes, just ask him what he thought about that, to be fair. Not a question that I imagine we'd be asking him this weekend, but, you know, interesting to find out what his thoughts were. We can have a little look at it again.
Yeah. And what you've got to be very careful of is slamming across in front of another driver. You take away the air off his front wing, you take away his viewpoint of the visibility of the braking point, and they can easily run into the back of you.
Absolutely.
As Lewis is still struggling to slow that Mercedes down. A bit of cadence braking now. No ABS on these cars. Stunning technology on a Formula 1 car, but no ABS, no stability control, no traction control. Good thing too.
So I think what's happening here, look at Carlos. Oh, they're coming out at Red Bull, which I assume means that Max Verstappen's coming into the pits. I'd just like to say Carlos Sainz must have pitted a little more recently than Verstappen as well. Such is the difference in pace between cars trying to unlap themselves. Red Bull have pulled Verstappen out of that potential problem, but once again, Martin, does this now start to trigger a few earlier pit stops further up the road?
Long stop again, wasn't it there? So
4.7 seconds.
Yeah. And I don't sense that Red Bull have unlocked these new regulations aerodynamically yet. They're really not at the incredible pace I thought they would.
Interestingly, Renault cover off that Verstappen pit stop as well by pitting Hulkenberg.
And of course that's dropped Verstappen behind another car. He doesn't really need to be behind Kimi Raikkonen.
See the harvesting going on with a blinking red light from the Alfa Romeo on board with Max Verstappen now.
Great shot.
I wonder, surely he's close enough to have a go.
The inside into 8.
He's going to have a go, isn't he, Max Verstappen? Don't normally see too many overtakes here, but Verstappen is going for it because Raikkonen was struggling with not much grip whatsoever. Verstappen on a fresh set of tyres thinks, I can't get stuck behind the Alfa. It's not going to happen.
So what are we going to see? I think we're going to see here a front wheel issue. Front left.
But at least it went out, slower stop, but it went out with everything attached. That's the main thing there. Christian Horner with us live on the Red Bull pit wall. First of all, at Max Verstappen's pit stop. Christian, these things happen from time to time.
Yeah, we've had the fastest one, and then obviously somewhere from the fastest one, just the front left, that's an issue there. So waiting for the feedback on that.
Were you getting a touch nervous when you saw that pink car trying to unlap itself against Max?
But it's a different driver in it, I suppose, but it's just uncomfortable when you're in that situation. So we're struggling a bit for grip out there at the moment. You can hear probably Max's comment. So obviously he's now stopped and those tires. Hopefully it's the end of the race.
Do you think Bottas is vulnerable to you? Do you think you've got a chance there, or are you looking at 5th?
I think he'd have to have a lot of deck. I mean, he's obviously going to have to run most likely the softer of the two compounds. So our only opportunity, if he got into serious deck, we're just really struggling to generate the temperatures and the grip out of these tyres at the moment.
Thanks ever so much, Christian. As Kimi Raikkonen comes into pit and comes out behind not one but 2 of the Toro Rossos. Danny Kvyat ahead of Alex Albon at the moment, battling for 12th and 13th, but Raikkonen's put himself right at DRS zone here.
It looks like trouble somewhere, doesn't it?
Danny Kvyat and Kimi Raikkonen scrapping away on the track as Lewis Hamilton comes in for a pit stop, and Raikkonen tries to go down the inside of Alex Albon. Hamilton's pit stop, 2.5 seconds. Consistent job being done by the Mercedes pit crew there. Albon stays ahead of Raikkonen, but then Raikkonen gets a much better exit on those fresher tyres. He's now got Danny Kvyat to have a look. Danny Kvyat opens the door, says, "Do you want to come in, Kimi?" And Kimi says, I don't need a second invitation for a party. Thank you very much indeed.
He's got a lot more grip, but that's not normally an overtaking place. Nice job there. 2 corners, 2 Toro Rosso
He's
smeared.
put himself under pressure, Kvyat, from his teammate as well, because Alex Albon had DRS down that straight. Albon is away and ahead. Raikkonen up to 12, Albon 13, Danny Kvyat down to 14. Lewis Hamilton pits, comes out behind his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and I'm sure very glad to get off the soft tyres and to get the medium on.
So what will Ferrari do about this? Nobody running out into the pit lane at the moment. Will they choose to cover off Lewis Hamilton?
I get the feeling Ferrari have got 2 or 3 laps to play with here, Martin. Such was the advantage Sebastian Vettel had over Lewis Hamilton, around about 8 seconds.
Yeah, it's tiny got into pits, wasn't it? But Ferrari running out now, so they will cover that off. So that, the grip he's got now, throwing that into T11.
So he's got round about 19 laps or so to throw that Mercedes round the track and to get after those 2 Ferraris. It's Sebastian Vettel who comes in first, no surprises there, to cover off Mercedes Ferrari not leaving it any longer than they had to get in and get a new set of the medium compound tyre on.
2.3 seconds, good start from the Ferrari boys.
Certainly
Not
was.
the quickest ever, but quick enough.
So Bottas runs through, Mercedes leaving Valtteri Bottas out, so I wonder, as Hamilton comes down the main straight here, they didn't have that much time at all, did they? Hamilton put in the fastest middle sector and the fastest final sector of a lap. Amazing pace that he's suddenly found on those tyres.
And they will definitely bring Leclerc in as well on the next lap. They need to do that to cover this kind of pace off.
Well, just thinking, are Mercedes leaving Bottas out there, Martin? Not to sacrifice a 4th place, which I think is going to be his, barring any safety cars, but could it be a bit of a blockage for Ferrari?
Understood. Copy.
Right, Leclerc struggling for grip. Vettel struggling in defence of Lewis Hamilton here. Suddenly, Hamilton's race has just come alive.
Yeah, and I think the car might be better on these yellow marked mediums as well, and Ferrari inevitably are reacting then. They'll bring the leader in this time.
Hamilton's got DRS on Sebastian Vettel. Might be time soon to repay the compliment a little bit. Charles Leclerc into the pits. Valtteri Bottas leads this race.
This needs to be a good stop.
Well, it was, 2.3 seconds, wasn't it, for Sebastian Vettel? Are the Ferrari pit crew up to the job? They certainly are. 2.4 seconds for Charles Leclerc. Valtteri Bottas rounds the final corner. Leclerc at 80 kilometres an hour Down the pit straight he goes, he's come in and he's come out and he's kept hold of the lead. Behind is Valtteri Bottas, behind him Sebastian Vettel, closing in on him. Lewis Hamilton has just set the fastest lap of this race. Bottas locks up. And his tyres getting to the end of their life, but Hamilton now is going to size up Sebastian Vettel and have a go at the Ferrari, you think. We're on board now with DRS assistance as we head towards turn 4. Hamilton's gaining, which way is he going to go? The long way round. He's wheel to wheel with Sebastian Vettel. He's almost off the track. They're plunging down the hill, and for one moment I thought they touched once again. A Ferrari and a Mercedes. Sebastian Vettel just holds on to that third place.
Stunning precision there, and trusting each other totally. Brilliant driving from the pair of them. We need more of that, please. I really enjoyed that. But Hamilton's feeling very punchy on these tyres, and that was incredibly bold to try to go around the outside of turn 4. How they didn't make contact, I'm not quite sure. We're about to find out, aren't we? That was kind of extremely bold, I must say. Look how close it's getting in there. Wow.
While we're watching replays of this, they've now caught up Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton with Valtteri Bottas, who I wonder, could he become a bit of a block here for Sebastian Vettel? I don't think he'll do it down the next straight, but there's no DRS on this straight, as he held him up just a little bit to help out Hamilton. I would imagine he'll dive into the pits in a few moments and get out of the way of this, and he does so. Hamilton's got DRS to have another go at Sebastian Vettel. Didn't work out the last time, might work out this time. He's got a bit more distance and a bit more room to work with. They've both got DRS.
Yeah, because
Vettel stays ahead.
Through the detection point, Bottas was giving Vettel some DRS. I thought Lewis might be a bit closer to him coming off the final corner. Here we go again.
DRS wide open. This time it's only Hamilton. Vettel wonders where he's going. Hamilton goes round the long way, round the outside once again. He's off the track once again, and Sebastian Vettel's lost it. Coming out of turn 4, Lewis Hamilton gets past and moves on into second place, and Sebastian Vettel is left spinning and disconsolate in the middle of the track.
I think his left rear's damaged. I think he'll have to come in. Has he ripped the surface? Has he gone through to the carcass of that left rear tyre? He just gave it a boot full of throttle, and the rear tyres couldn't cope with the demand.
So this is the exit of the corner. That is a sight that Sebastian Vettel and his fans don't want to see.
Once again, it was Hamilton being adventurous, and ambition well ahead of adhesion, and he has damaged that left rear tyre, and his front wing's gone for good measure.
Front wing has gone, the front left tyre damaged, the rear tyres as well, immediately calling to the team to shout box, box, box. Charles Leclerc sets a new fastest lap of the race. Sebastian Vettel's front wing is left by the side of the track. Lewis Hamilton's into second place, and this is how he lost his front wing as the racing point unlaps itself.
Yeah, so has he had another incident somewhere then?
Well, here comes the Williams then of Kubica, and there it just goes.
Ooh, it's really scary when it does that. So he's clearly damaged the front wing on the curb. Sometimes that gets underneath your front wheels. You just toboggan to the nearest hard thing.
Oh, look how it was oscillating, Martin, before, and you could see the vibrations. George Russell it was in the Williams.
A lot of debris on the track. I wonder if race control will be looking at that, thinking about a virtual safety car or a safety car to clear that away.
I'm sure Michael Massey, the F1 race director, and his team will be looking at that. Of course, his deputy Colin Hayward up there with him as well. 12 seconds stationary time for Sebastian Vettel while they fix that wing, and look what that has done to his race, as not only the Red Bull that Pierre Gasly goes past, but Hulkenberg and Ricciardo as well, and the Renaults. Ricciardo locks up, and they touch the two Renaults as well, as Hulkenberg squeezes his way past Daniel Ricciardo in the battle for 6th place. There was definitely contact there between the two teammates, and we might get some again, because Ricciardo's going for it. Down into turn 4 they run, and Ricciardo just failing to get alongside Nico Hulkenberg, who keeps hold of that 6th place. Leclerc leads, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen and Pierre Gasly up into 5th place now, with Sebastian Vettel tumbling. Gasly, by the way, and Ricciardo have only stopped the once.
Hulkenberg's tyres 8 laps younger than Ricciardo's. Now they're on different strategies. Front brakes glowing red, over 1,000 degrees Celsius there in the Renault, going down into turn 10. Where can Vettel get back to in this race then? Hulkenberg and Ricciardo is a possibility, maybe Gasly too. He might get back to 6th.
So, second time of asking, Hamilton gets past, no contact whatsoever. The pressure that Hamilton was putting on Vettel, was that the cause of it, or was it just one of those things, Martin, that these cars are so sensitive, there's a bit of wind about as well, that it's easy to lose?
They were talking about turn 4, weren't they, about how loose the cars are going to be up there, and also he was getting quite a lot of wash off the Mercedes of Hamilton there, and he gave it a big boot full of throttle and spun up the rear wheels. There it goes. Yeah, you can have horrible accident if you get on top of your own front wing, that it sort of disintegrate. Oh, you know what's done that? It's the vibration from having damaged the tyre. He's literally shaken the front wing off it.
Yeah, because you can see that band, that big strip on the left-hand side of that left front tyre.
So Norris is his first target then, coming back. I think he could get as high as we've got Hulkenberg in there. Gasly's pitted now. Gasly's actually pitted.
Yeah,
so Vettel could get as high as P5.
But he could have finished on the podium. Could at one stage have thought about winning this race. His teammate is still leading this race. We've got a double yellow being waved round about this point of the track. It's all clear now. I assume that was from the debris and the marshals retrieving it.
Pick the front wing up. There's not too much rubbish on the track now, is there?
So Vettel's after Norris. Norris is looking in his mirrors. And the young man stays ahead in 7th place at the moment. Doesn't look good on the CV for Sebastian Vettel this evening, the way he lost it, but we're standing here in a commentary box, Martin, where apart from a severe air condition, there's no breeze blowing around at all. Out on that track, it is very, very gusty indeed, and these cars very, very sensitive to what I think is the windiest Bahrain Grand Prix we've seen.
Yeah, so the track's a little bit off camber. Vettel's giving it too much throttle, and I'm sure he was getting some destabilisation from the aero there as well, and round she went.
And here she goes once again. Lando Norris is the orange car in front. It's the red matte paint job of the Ferrari that manages to move up now into 7th place. That was nice and easy, and there might be harder battles to come for Sebastian Vettel as he tries to salvage his race.
I think Lando's sensible. There's no point having a fight. It's not really going to be a proper fight. You know, the works Ferrari on a fresh set of tyres is going to be past you at some point.
And here we can see once again what happened to the two Renaults. Nico Hulkenberg on the right-hand side cuts right across his teammate, but they're on different strategies.
Well, Daniel locked up his front, so...
What was that? He hit me. I gave him plenty of space.
It's true, he did. Daniel locked his front tyres and just toboggan towards him.
Holding his front wing end plate.
He's giving him massive amount of space. But
yeah. Holding his front wing end plate, Hulkenberg and Ricciardo, like some sort of paper aeroplane there. Sebastian Vettel moves past Daniel Ricciardo now, up into 6th place.
Yeah, Ricciardo will obviously lose some aero performance from that as well.
Out in front, while all this is happening, the gap between Leclerc and Hamilton is 10 seconds. I don't want to put any curses on anybody, but with 15 laps to go, this is looking utterly beautiful for Charles Leclerc. In his second race for Ferrari, he's got a 10-second lead with 15 laps to go.
And, of course, at the moment, fastest lap, so another World Championship point for that.
This is how Sebastian Vettel managed to get past his former teammate. Nico Hulkenberg next on the road.
Just a bit of mathematics as it pops up somewhere. Who will lead the World Championship? At this point,
Valtteri Bottas.
Bottas will still, won't he? Because Leclerc finished 5th in Australia. Should have finished like this, and then 15 laps to go. There's been plenty of action so far. Great Grand Prix, hasn't it? I've enjoyed it.
It's been a super Grand Prix. Just thinking, Lewis Hamilton would have 36 points for a couple of second places. Valtteri Bottas picked up 26 points plus 15 is 51. This is where I need your mate Carol Vorderman with me in the commentary box to say she's good with us. She can work all this out.
I think Bottas will still lead the World Championship tonight. Should they stay as they are.
I'll get the notepad out. Paul de Resta at race control for you.
Yeah, there could be yet more problems for Vettel, Crofty. On his dash it said use high gear. You can see it just underneath the graphics we've got. It's in big bold signs in red, so I think temperature issue or something's going wrong, so he'll need to nurse that car to the end.
There may be some radiator damage, of course. There's been a lot of shrapnel coming off the front wing as he went over it, so maybe something in his radiator duct. What he doesn't need to be is in the slipstream of another car.
So keep it nice and cool. The best way to do that, and there's another hazard out the track as well, double waved yellows. Best way to cool the car down, get past the car in front. Sebastian Vettel's trying to do that under braking, he does. Nice move from Sebastian Vettel. 5th place is now his.
But that's probably as high as he's going to get. He's 26 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Verstappen's tyres, Verstappen pitted.
He's lapping at about the same pace as Verstappen.
Yeah, so he's just gone over, what was that, like a plastic bag as well for good measure, depending on where that ended up. So what will Vettel do now? Nurse it to the end? He's going to struggle to catch Verstappen, isn't he?
Yeah. So Nico Rosberg in our pre-race show was talking about some epic battles here in Bahrain, and particularly all the way up to turn 4. Nico, seems to have done for Sebastian Vettel tonight, sadly.
Yeah, but what a great race we've seen. But yeah, Vettel just really continuing on from what he was doing last year, just messing it up again, spinning around again in a battle. Unbelievable that it keeps on happening to him. And just a comment to the drive in high gear, that's just a reminder for him most likely, because it's a manner of driving to save fuel.
It's not a track, Martin, thank you Nico, that is that high on fuel consumption, but of course that 110 kilos that you're allowed from lights out to the checkered flag, you don't have to use it all up, don't put it all in.
Don't put it all in, most of them don't really, do they? But also there's been no safety car.
Yeah.
The pace has been pretty hot, so they normally underfuel the cars to start the race because it costs you 0.3 of a second per lap for every 10 kilograms of fuel that you carry.
Here goes Lando Norris on Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo saw his teammate dancing around the outside of the turn 1. Not surprising. He's really struggling now, isn't he, Ricciardo? Wheel spin and sliding away as he gets out of the slow corners.
Yeah, one stopper hasn't worked for Daniel, has it?
Not at the moment. We've lost with this race just Roman Grosjean. 19 runners at the moment. Giovinazzi in 13th place, all the way down to Carlos Sainz, have all been lapped.
Alex Albon in the points as well now for Toro Rosso. 4/10 ahead of Gasly though in the Red Bull.
Yeah, Gasly, who qualified worse in the Red Bull this year here than he did in the Toro Rosso last year, but he is very much closing in on Alex Albon for that last points finish at the moment. Sergio Perez just behind, a little way off here for a Racing Point team where their pace has rather disappeared here this weekend. Kimi Raikkonen now on Daniel Ricciardo, who's seeing a lot of cars passing him. Not an ideal strategy here in Bahrain, trying to make it work for a one-stopper, and he's been passed there by Kimi Raikkonen fairly easily in the Alfa Romeo, and Ricciardo drops down into 9th place.
9.5 seconds ahead of Gasly, the man who took his seat at Red Bull. Will he be safe there or not? We'll find out.
If you pit him now, you're asking even a man who's so good at overtaking as Daniel Ricciardo to do an awful lot of work. As the race leader, under pressure from the Racing Point. No, it isn't. That's the race leader lapping Sergio Perez.
There's something strange with the engine.
Okay, copy that, we are checking it.
There's something strange with the engine.
Oh no, I hope not. And I hope that's just the worry of a man leading his first Formula 1 Grand Prix, getting ever close to the finish. You know what it's like, Martin, when you're in a winning position, you can imagine all sorts of things going on.
Yeah, and he lost 8, 10, 9 tenths to Hamilton on that lap. So he was struggling for pace. He's lost another 1.3 in the first sector alone. He's lost a lot of pace, has Charles Leclerc.
He certainly has. The gap, look at it, was over 10 seconds. Now coming down to about 7.5 seconds as well. Now this is really, really worrying moments for Ferrari and for Charles Leclerc. Tense moments in the Mercedes garage as well. There are tense moments at McLaren. Can Lando Norris fight off Kimi Raikkonen? Raikkonen's going to have to go the long way round here. Norris hogs that orange McLaren in exactly the right place. Kept the more experienced man at bay. But this is young and old, dueling on the track here in Bahrain. Norris is under pressure once again and holds off Kimi Raikkonen once again to keep that 7th place.
38.0 there for Leclerc. 1 minute 38.0. Very slow gap down to 6.8 seconds. The Ferrari is limping.
Valtteri Bottas is about 30 seconds or so, 31 seconds or so behind Lewis Hamilton. If he doesn't win, he's got to stand on the podium. It would be utterly heartbreaking for Charles Leclerc to have at least that moment taken away from him tonight, and I'm sure he's going to stand on the podium and on the top of it many times to come.
What's happening?
Whatever's happening, we're not hearing about it. I hope that man there, the team principal at Ferrari, Matteo Binotto, has an answer for him. But he's getting agitated, he's getting concerned, and in a few moments' time he's going to start to see the silver arrow of Lewis Hamilton behind him.
I wonder if he's lost the battery power of the car. Look out from close now. Hamilton appears foreshortened on that camera angle. But Hamilton 1.7 seconds faster in the first sector. Leclerc has lost a lot of power.
We saw that issue, didn't we, with Daniel Ricciardo losing all the hybrid energy, the electrical energy in Monaco, of course, last year. But in Monaco, Martin, it's an awful lot harder to pass than it is here in Bahrain. Let's head to Paul at race control.
Crofty, look at the speed traps. He's 25k down on the straight and up to 30k down on the straight. He's losing power rapidly, and he can. The racing point's pulling away.
Yeah, that's
no way to recovery.
So, Martin, I think you are absolutely right there. That sounds like the turbo.
No H recovery.
No H recovery. The turbo's gone.
Yeah, they're not harvesting power. They're not filling the batteries up from the heat, the turbo, and that's going to cost young Charles Leclerc victory. Not even cost him a podium yet. Well, in fact, it'll certainly cost him a podium now.
You can see when you see the rear of that Ferrari that there is no H recovery because those lights aren't flashing, and to show that the engine is harvesting. Lewis Hamilton is catching Charles Leclerc. Now, normally when you see a pass for the lead, you want to get excited, you want to marvel in what's going on. I don't think anybody with a heart is going to be marvelling at what we're seeing here. Charles Leclerc, second youngest pole sitter in the history of Formula One, who has coped admirably with tonight's race, has been absolutely superb at times, lost the lead from the start of this race, battled his way back into the lead, is soon going to be passed for the lead by Lewis Hamilton. And the heartbreaking thing is there is nothing, Martin, he can do to stop the inevitable.
Now, so slow, isn't he? He's got no power. Lewis won't want to go up the inside of that particular corner, and he doesn't need to. Leclerc is a sitting duck.
So Lewis Hamilton down towards the final corner takes the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Mercedes, Toto Wolff sits impassively on that Mercedes pit wall in the garage. He's not going to celebrate that. That's not the way he would have wanted his team to take the lead. But I'll tell you what, Martin, he will be a mightily relieved man that his team have taken the lead.
So he's half a minute ahead of Bottas and Verstappen. He might still hang if he keeps that amount of pace, hang on to second place.
Fernando Alonso knows a thing or two about podiums at a racetrack without winning, 8 of them at Interlagos without ever winning. In Brazil, Kimi Raikkonen has had 8 podiums here without ever winning a race as well. Charles Leclerc, we keep everything crossed, will finish on the podiums. You just want to see good things happen to good guys.
So if he's not got any battery power, that's 160 horsepower, which will push a family saloon along very nicely indeed. That's what he's missing now. He's carrying the same weight, the same aero drag, but with 160 horsepower less.
So what it means, though, Lewis Hamilton now in the lead of this race, and I think that pass gives him the virtual lead in the World Championship as well.
And is this what they were protecting in Australia with Ferrari? They were protecting something because they were just off their true pace there. Well, so it's just the engine pushing it along. He doesn't have the battery, but he's carrying all the gubbins as well.
All throughout this weekend, Ferrari have insisted, Martin, they've been running that engine at higher modes, higher settings. So I wonder, have they been stress testing things a little bit to work out, if this indeed was the problem?
The gap behind with Bottas is fine. We should finish like this.
He's got to go faster than that. He's coasting into the corners. He's got to keep the pace up because he's got to keep his tyre temperatures and pressures up and his brake temperatures up. He was coasting into the last corner. He's got to do a Michael Schumacher here, pretend there's nothing wrong and just eke every bit out of it, and he can still finish second.
But second, though, Martin, is that in any way a consolation? You're going to be talking to him straight after this race, and I'm sure you're going to be asking him, is a first podium, is this a consolation for you? And I don't know what the answer will be.
Maybe a good point from Anthony coming up into my ears. If he's not harvesting, then he's putting a lot of energy into the rear brake. The rear brakes are not big enough without the engine pull. We see those red lights flashing where it's slowing cars, almost pulling the handbrake on, slowing the car down to charge the batteries. But if you don't have that facility, your rear brakes are not big enough.
Follow the numbers on the dash.
Yeah, but I can't. Oh my god. I will try.
Keep calm, we need the car home.
Yes, I will try. I'm keeping calm.
Copy.
It's the most agitated we've heard him, and I'm not surprised. Frankly, he's driven the perfect race.
Absolutely. At the moment, Valtteri Bottas is lapping about 5 seconds a lap quicker. There's Danny Kvyat unlapping himself against Charles Leclerc. The gap between Leclerc and Bottas was 22.8 seconds at the end of the last lap. Leclerc now crosses the line. Valtteri Bottas coming through the final corner in just a few moments' time. There he is, right at the top of your screen. So that's gone down to about 16 seconds now. So from 22.8 seconds to 15.9 seconds in one lap. If Valtteri Bottas keeps on this pace, it's another Mercedes 1-2 at the start of this season.
Yeah, Leclerc's heading for fourth place here, and that's by dint of Vettel having had his issues. So another fourth and fifth at the moment for Ferrari, assuming it gets to the end.
I don't know, Martin. He might even be overtaken by Max Verstappen at this rate as well. Looking at Verstappen's times,
that's what I mean. I think he'll be heading for fourth place. Verstappen up into third. That's what I was.
Sorry, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Verstappen, an unlikely podium, and carry on his run. He's got a podium in the last 6 races. I don't think he thought that was possible tonight.
Okay, Valtteri, no need to take risks. We're going to do it with 1 lap spare.
So if Valtteri Bottas can do it with 1 lap to spare, Verstappen at this pace will probably need to do it on the final lap, just to twist the knife even further into the heart of Charles Leclerc.
I think that's an old message, because Bottas and Verstappen are catching Leclerc way faster than that.
Yeah, could be right. Lando Norris, by the way, still keeping Kimi Raikkonen at bay in 7th place. Christian Horner on the Red Bull pit wall. Christian, do you see a podium here?
Well, it's going to be awfully close if he keeps going around at this pace. Probably 2 laps before the end, we should be right with him. So really unlucky for him, but obviously there's a podium in the offing here.
Yeah, which I'm sure you'll take, but as a racer yourself, this is heartbreaking for Charles Leclerc, and I'm sure you feel very much for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been totally dominant all weekend, so sad for him, but obviously for us it's an opportunity. We've got to get our head down and try and close these laps out as quick as we can.
Thanks, Christian.
Downshifts are very cocky. Very cocky.
Okay, copy.
What was that word?
Did that sound to me like Valtteri was very cocky? Paul de Restes at Sky Race Control. I think you might, Paul, have heard that message a little bit clearer.
Downshifts are very clunky,
Thank you very
so
much.
he's maybe struggling in the gearbox now, so it could change again.
Downshifts are very clunky. I honestly thought he said Valtteri's been very cocky. And I didn't know how he could tell that, whether Valtteri's got a secret radio message to Lewis or not. But it did sound that to me. It's been a long night.
So it's been a long night for Charles Leclerc. Sadly, I've got a sneaky feeling he might get driver of the day. He'll certainly get my vote.
There were 25 points for driver of the day.
Yeah, and does he still has fastest lap, so he gets a point for that, providing he finishes inside the top 10.
Which he certainly should do if he stays on the road. Lewis Hamilton, though, leading this race on lap 53. And what a lucky break that has been for Lewis Hamilton tonight. He's seen one Ferrari sent into a spin as he passed it around the outside, and the other Ferrari's turbo stopped spinning and cost him the chance of a race victory. Championships are won and lost on many things throughout the season, but for all your consistency, for all your excellent efforts, you often need a bit of good fortune to go your way.
Yeah, he's had a long career ahead of him, very long career ahead of him, so he'll get his chance. This was certainly his race. And as you can see, Bottas now sailing up behind him, and Verstappen only 7.3 seconds behind that, which is little more than a lap.
This pace, we'll catch it.
Yes.
I say a little more.
He's 40 kph down in car speed, straight line.
A little more than a lap, that he's gaining that sort of time over a given lap.
So there's Valtteri Bottas closing in on Charles Leclerc. We can bring in Nico Rosberg now. And Nico, I remember a race back in Canada many years ago where you had to nurse a car home when you lost the rear engine recovery as well, and you were nursing your brakes. How difficult is it for a driver in these circumstances to actually bring the car home?
It's absolutely heartbreaking for him, and sport can be so unfair sometimes, and that's what's happening to him today. He's doing his best to try and bring it home, but Bottas is just about to pass him. Let's see if he can stay ahead of Verstappen.
Nico, thanks ever so much indeed. You'll hear more from Nico with Simon and the gang after the conclusion of this Grand Prix, which was being led for so long by Charles Leclerc. He's still in the top 3, but only just at the moment as Valtteri Bottas now passes him. It's gone from a Ferrari 1-2 to a Mercedes 1-2, and if you feel for Charles Leclerc, Paul de Resta, you've got to feel for everyone in that Ferrari garage as well, because this could have been the night that they could start to really celebrate, and good things happening to them, but it's going to be a long, long night to pack up instead.
This could have been a 1-2, couldn't it, Crofty? And they'll rue the mistake of Vettel again, that spin. And then obviously picking up the wing damage because of the vibration. Hamilton, a class act again. He put Vettel under pressure.
Yeah.
He calculated, measured, done exactly what he had to do. And, they'll be thinking when they go away from here. Mercedes should think lucky at the same time, but their tactics have been good. At the same time they're going to have a 1-2 in both Grand Prix so far this year, and that is a massive impact.
We have a yellow flag being waved in sector 1. It's car number 27. It's Nico Hulkenberg in the Renault. Now he's gone off into the runoff area, I think at the end of the straight. And I wonder what's happening there. Daniel Ricciardo's there as well.
Both cars on one lap.
Now, is this a mechanical problem, or have they come together again? I only ask that because they have done previously in this race. Pushes Sergio Perez into the points now.
It almost looks like they've ran out of fuel both together at the same time. I mean,
it was not a bad guess if that's right, Paul.
Everything just cut out.
So that, you would assume, is electrics then, if everything is just cut out, electrics or hydraulics. Let's have a listen on board with Daniel Ricciardo.
And that was a yellow flag for Hulkenberg as well, or was that at the same point?
Right at the same point as his teammate. They just pulled over to the side of the track.
And this is on board Hulkenberg. Oh, that's nasty, that's a big failure.
Oh,
that
is not looking good for Renault in the slightest there. We've already said safety car has been deployed as well, which might come to Charles Leclerc's aid a little bit. Because if those cars aren't recovered, and we have a safety car to the end of the race, Charles Leclerc might just keep hold of third place.
At the same time, if they restart this race, Crofty, he's in trouble.
Yeah, but how long does it take to recover one Renault and two Renaults? I say might come to Charles Leclerc's. I'm just looking on the positive side.
I think you might be right. I think it might finish under safety car here,
which would certainly help him. In terms of Renault, Paul, that's a Carlos Sainz retiring in the McLaren as well. He was already quite a long way down after suffering damage when he clashed with Max Verstappen in the opening stages of this race. But Sainz, of course, stopped with an MG UK problem. Renault powered in the first race. Renault just had two power-related issues, it looks like. That's not good for engine's power unit, worries and troubles.
It doesn't look good when you see Australia as well, but Lando Norris, shout out for him, P6 after those two failures as well. Good points for McLaren, in front of all their management and board members.
Well, it's contrasting fortunes, isn't it? As Carlos Sainz retires for a second time this season, Lando Norris is preparing to celebrate a best finish in Formula 1, a first points finish in Formula 1, a top 6 finish in Formula 1. Who's your driver of the day? Who would you vote for?
There is absolutely no question who driver of the weekend has been.
That man there?
And it's the man in third place.
Absolutely.
There is not a person in this paddock is not going to feel the pain he's going to go through. And he's so level-headed. After yesterday, when the team were congratulating him, he said the job is tomorrow. And you can only feel the letdown. And the fact that he battled back from falling those few places at the first lap, and he just showed his true class, his true racecraft. It will come again very soon, and I hope at the next Grand Prix certainly it comes that quick, because it deserves to.
Martin Brundle's on his way down to interview the top three, and I think he's probably in the tunnel underneath the track at the moment. Someone needs to tell him why Charles Leclerc could still be in the top three at the end of this race, and he might not be expecting it, but after all the bad fortune for Charles Leclerc, this is looking like good fortune at the moment. We might get the 8th World Championship Grand Prix to finish behind a safety car, and the first since China in 2015. Valtteri Bottas started 4th. In 2nd place, Charles Leclerc started on pole.
Will he finish at the safety car?
Not sure yet, not sure.
And he's asking, does this race finish under the safety car?
It will, Crofty, because they've not even caught the safety car yet, and then they would have to do another lap before it comes in, so lucky for him, I think it's all done.
It'll be another Mercedes 1-2 as well. There's Hamilton trying to keep his tyres warm just in case they get a restart. He doesn't want to be going too fast there. Paulie almost overtook the safety car, which is a big no-no. They might just have cleared the two Renaults, but I think we're on to the final lap anyway. Oh, they cleared one Renault, and they've still got Daniel Ricciardo's to clear down there.
And that car looks live as well. You can tell that flashing red light, so that means stand clear unless you've got a set of marigolds on.
Absolutely.
You don't want to earth it.
Now, Toto Wolff has been through a few emotions this evening as well. He's going to positively age throughout this season, Paul, if it carries on the way that it's going. But this has been a sensational Grand Prix. It really has, and I hope we're set for many more battles to come like this.
Well, this is the first tester of how these new aero regs work, and currently cars follow closer. Yes, we've got another DRS zone here, the switch is bigger, but what's been nice is the first 2 or 3 laps we've seen cars battle for the lead. Leclerc passed his teammate Vettel.
Yeah.
He took it because he had the faster car,
which is brilliant.
And you could obviously see Hamilton, Bottas, they were fighting strong, but midfield as well. It just shows you how close it is. I think we really are. And China is always one of the best races of the year normally.
Yes, in 2 weeks' time we head to China for the 1000th World Championship Grand Prix, and of the previous 999, this might actually rank somewhere up there. You always get a good race in China. You can watch it, of course, live, exclusively live, in ultra high definition as well on Sky Sports F1. Do join us for what we all think is going to be a magnificent race, and one that's certainly worth getting up early for. You didn't have to get up that early if you were in the UK for this one tonight here in Bahrain. Lewis Hamilton, when he woke up this morning, did he really think that he'd be taking victory? Halfway through this race, did he really think he'd be taking victory?
Okay, so the safety car is going to come into the pit lane, and that's going to be checkered flag.
And it's going to finish behind the safety car for the 8th time in the history of Formula One. Mercedes, who started the season with a 1-2 in Australia. It was Valtteri Bottas ahead of Lewis Hamilton. It's been a rather more complicated race here in Bahrain this evening, but the result is it's a Mercedes 1-2 again. They're starting behind Ferrari, they finish ahead of Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton wins the Bahrain Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas comes home in second place. Charles Leclerc gets his first podium in Formula One. It should have been his first victory, but it was cruelly taken away from him through no fault of his own. Max Verstappen finishes fourth, and his run of consecutive podium finishes ends here tonight. Sebastian Vettel, 5th place only after his spin after Lewis Hamilton passed him. Well done Lando Norris, a top 6 finish for the first and surely not the last time in F1. Kimi Raikkonen in the points for a second race. Pierre Gasly on the board for the first time this year. Albon for Toro Rosso for the first time ever, and Sergio Perez takes the final point for Force India. Fireworks reach into the night sky. We had plenty of fireworks on track for 57 laps.
Yeah, you can see by Toto's face, you know, they know they're up against it today. They'll celebrate it. You can see the mechanics are on the pit wall. Ferrari again. They're going to have to go away, and they've got a busy few weeks ahead of them, Crofty. A busy few weeks, and I hope that doesn't impact their engine allocation going forward to impact, because this championship looks like it's really setting up to be a nice one. And this guy